This meeting is
All right,
being
so
recorded.
good morning. Do me a favor too, you guys. Unless you're talking, put your thing on mute. Good morning. Greetings.
All right.
I'm Dion Ingram. I'm president of the BPOA, and with me I have fellow board members, Jerome Gage, Sergeant at Arms, Mark Pope, Information Officer, Ray Cahill, Vice President Terrence Bell, and member at large. And welcome to our 10 questions with BPOA. So
all right.
Today
Good morning,
we have with us Captain Matt Rodriguez, who's one of the candidates for Los Angeles County Sheriff. Mr. Rodriguez, we will start with you having 2 minutes to introduce yourself. You will then be asked 10 questions. For each question, you will have a 2-minute time limit to respond. At the conclusion of the interview, you will have 3 minutes for closing remarks. We start off by a disclaimer of that, your participation in this is not an endorsement from our organization. It is an attempt for our members to get to know a little bit about you and your candidacy, and for you to speak with our membership. So with that being said, let's begin.
All right, fantastic. Well, first and foremost, thank you, Mr. Ingram, for giving me the opportunity, you and your board, to come and speak before the BPOA. I probably know a lot of you and known you for many years. What I'd like to do is make this a little bit more of a conversation type, so you guys could get to know me from where I've been and since we've last worked with each other, and what I'm doing, what my intentions are for the Sheriff's Department going forward. You guys know me, Matt Rodriguez. I did 25 years in the LA County Sheriff's Department. My career was cut short by the corruption of Lee Baca and his regime. They were asking me to do some unsavory things, and I wouldn't do it. So I had spent most of my adult life in universities preparing myself with an advanced education. I have 2 master's degrees, one from USC in executive leadership. I have a public administration degree from Cal State Long Beach, a degree from UCLA, political science with an emphasis in public law, and I had an administration of justice degree when I arrived in the Sheriff's Department. So I wasn't going to carry out any unethical or corrupt orders from a corrupt regime. So I took my career on the road. After I left the Sheriff's Department as a captain in good standing, I went to San Diego and I worked as a deputy director of transit security for the entire transit system there. I then came back down to the region, worked in the city of Commerce as a public safety director and also an interim city manager. After that, I went to Metrolink, was in charge of the security program for the entire Metrolink across 6 counties. Ultimately went up to Santa Paula, where I was an assistant chief of police. And then I was the interim chief of police up until just before the pandemic. I came back home to look after my 95-year-old mother, which is what I'm doing today. I decided to run for office because the Sheriff's Department is in a state of disarray. The community is suffering and the organization is suffering as a result of that. So, a lot of you have worked with me. You know what I stand for, and you know what I'm looking to do in the future with the organization. So thank you for that opportunity.
Okay. All right. Good morning, sir. This is Terrence Bell, member at large. And the first question for you, sir, is who are your 2 greatest influences and why? And once again, who are your 2 greatest influences and why?
Well, listen, I'm a sports guy and I'm a music guy. So I'm not going to pull out any presidents and historians and people like that. I'm going to get into my campaign for a minute and tell you where I'm going. My campaign started, believe it or not, 2 blocks south of South Los Angeles. The first consultant that I hired for my campaign is a guy named Dr. E. Lance McCarthy. He is the economic advisor to the George Floyd Foundation. He's also a founder of Ferguson 1000 Jobs after the unrest in Ferguson, Missouri. So I started my campaign in the south end of Los Angeles. Why? Because I wanted to have the opportunity to hone my message with the people that I felt had the biggest grievance, or perhaps it suffered the most at the hands of law enforcement historically. And I started there with a respect-based leadership, a respect-based platform where we will treat everybody with the respect and dignity that they deserve. That includes people from all socioeconomic stratas. It includes people with all immigration status. It doesn't matter where you're at, your immigration, your race, your color, your creed. I wanted to treat everybody with respect and dignity. So we created the respect-based platform. And we also started talking about transforming law enforcement from gladiators to guardians of the community, as opposed to being just people who ram the law down people's throat. We would be more of a peacekeeper in the community. So I surrounded myself with people who could challenge me, people who could help me hone the message. So now we are, in fact, the respect-based leader. We are the campaign that's actually based on respect-based leadership. We stand for the rule of law. We stand for respect of the community and respect of law enforcement as well. To answer your question, my greatest leaders are my father, and I could probably name you 1,000 sports heroes that drive me every single day.
All right.
Thank you.
That's your time. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So my question is, if elected sheriff, what steps would you take to ensure that the sheriff, let me start over. If elected sheriff, what steps will you take to ensure the sheriff's department is actively involved in encouraging and fostering the recruitment and promotion of qualified African-American candidates within the department?
Well, I'm all about merit-based promotions. I'm about merit-based hirings. We absolutely have to go into the African-American communities and recruit, but not only do we have to go there to recruit qualified people in the organization, but once in the organization, we need to mentor, and then we need to guide them into positions of leadership. I'm looking at the sheriff's department now, and I don't see much. I'm gone. It's my disclaimer. I've been gone for 9 years, but I don't see much representation at the top in the African-American community. It appears to be lacking. I know this particular sheriff. He practices cronyism and nepotism. And there's a lot of doublespeak as to what the qualifications need to be. And then they get broken for certain people. There's no consistency. There appears to be no merit-based promotions in the process in the organization. Therefore, there appears to be a lack of representation in the ranks of African Americans. So yes, I do agree that we need to go out into the community. We need to recruit. We need to find solid people that are committed to public safety and serving the community with a respect-based platform. And then once in the organization, we mentor them and guide them all the way up to the top, to perhaps even sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This is Ray Cahill, Vice President. My question is, if elected sheriff, how will you create partnerships with local entities such as community leaders, nonprofit organizations, churches, etc., to facilitate positive working relationships between the community and the sheriff's department? That was a mouthful. You want me to repeat it, sir?
No, I got it. So look, the 3 pillars of my respect-based campaign, the 3 pillars of my respect-based campaign are very simple. It's respect for the community, respect for law enforcement, respect for the rule of law. So being that your question surrounds the community, absolutely. I mean, once you get into the ranks of captain or lieutenant, you start really having to interact with people throughout the community, business improvement districts, community leaders, chambers of commerce. It's something that I've done throughout my career. I'm known as a team builder, somebody who works in the spirit of cooperation. I'm a consensus builder. I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. When elected sheriff, I absolutely want to surround myself with the smartest people from all walks of the community. That includes the clergies, that includes business owners, sports figures, even perhaps gang members. And believe it or not, I actually have known gang members that are assisting in my campaign because they want to get somebody they know that will be fair and impartial in the sheriff's office to treat their communities with the dignity and respect they deserve as well. So, yep, long history of working with community activists and people that are active in the community to make our community a better place to live. So absolutely I plan to do that. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you for your response.
Thank you, sir. This is question number 4. I'm Mark Pope, Information Officer. Here's the question. What's your position and strategy on issuing CCW permits to civilians?
Well, I do believe in the CCW program. The way I look at it is like this. If you have lived your life and you've abided by the rule of law in our country, and you've lived a wholesome, criminal-free life, and you are willing to purchase a weapon legally, you're willing to store it properly, you're willing to train with that weapon, and you could show a need to protect your business and or your family, I intend to issue concealed weapons permits. And the reason why is because I do believe that an armed society is a safe society. Thank you. I know it's succinct. I hope it answered the question.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your response.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, sir, question number 5. What are your hobbies?
Well, I'm chomping on the bit for the Super Bowl, my friend. My hobbies are sports. I'm in my man cave as we speak, where I enjoy Saturdays with USC football. I grew up going to watch USC football. I raised my family going to see USC football. So every Saturday religiously for the rest of my life, you can know where I'm at. Just look at the TV programming and you'll know that I'm watching football and following it. And the reason why is because I played the game for 5 years and it really shaped me for my motivation and everything that I do. It's a tough game. You get knocked down, you got to get back up, you get hurt, you got to play through pain. You have to push yourself, every day of the week for Friday Night Lights. So that's my hobby. Additionally, I play the guitar and I write music. And that is more of a personal thing that I do to relax. I've been doing that since I was about 16 years old. And I've honed my craft to the level that I feel comfortable at. But that's more personal. It's not something I do public very often, but I have. So my 2 hobbies are music and sports, in particular football.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. My question is, recently the Commission of Peace Officers Standards and Training posts implemented bias and racial profiling training to acknowledge and help law enforcement officers understand how implicit bias, stereotypes, and racial profiling impact the community. As a career law enforcement person, how do you think implicit bias has affected the law enforcement community?
I think it has affected it in a very drastic way. I was in the Rodney King riots in 1992. I was in a radio car in South LA when the riots started. And I was on the sidelines in 2020 when I got to see the aftermath of the tragic death of George Floyd. I really was saddened by the fact that our profession had gone backwards. And when we're in times where, we have vehicles that are driving themselves and technologies being embraced in just about everything we see, yet the profession of law enforcement has gone backwards. And a lot of it perhaps is related to implicit bias. So I saw that there was a lack of respect completely toward the life of George Floyd, no empathy to the man's life. And I came up with my philosophy of respect-based leadership, where we will treat everybody respectfully, responsibly, ethically, sensibly, professionally, empathetically, civilly, and transparently, which falls right into that bias training. We don't see color. We see everybody. We see the goodness in people. until they show us otherwise. And then when we deal with them from the criminal, justice aspect, we treat them respectfully with the dignity and respect that they deserve. That's my position on racial bias. Thank you.
Thank you for your response.
All right, sir. Question number 7. What is the one thing about yourself you wish you could change?
I probably wish I didn't take things so serious. Sometimes I take things too personally. I take things too seriously. At the last forum, we all saw it where the sheriff spoke. He said, "Hey, Matt, you sound obsessed," which was a personal shot at me. I didn't take personal shots at him, but he took personal shots at me. But you know what? I do take it personally when I see what's going on with the sheriff's department, when I see the sheriff's conduct toward the board of supervisor, when I see that the sheriff's budget he's being choked to death literally by the budget. The organization is suffering and the community suffers. So I do take it personally, and probably a bit too much. So I guess if I had to rewire myself, I'd figure out a way to have more of a laissez-faire attitude towards things and let things just brush off my shoulder like a duck or whatever, water off a duck. But it's just not me. When I see something that's unjust, unprofessional, unethical, immoral, illegal, I take action and I step up and I stand up against that, and probably to my own detriment. And then the second and other one is probably I put people before myself for way too long. I intend to continue to do that, but because I find that when you serve others, they serve you back tenfold.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your answer.
Yes, sir. Question number 8. What do you believe is the biggest change the LA County Sheriff's Department needs to make?
Well, look, day one, when I get into office, I've said this all around Los Angeles County, starting in South Los Angeles. When I talk about we will implement respect-based leadership, we will implement the policy of respect on day one. And that starts at the top, from the sheriff on down. When the sheriff is conducting himself, driven by ego, driven by arrogance, standing up to people, insulting women in Spanish or English, insulting others, calling people architects of failure, pointing out people's failures in the homeless issue and everything else. That conduct gets emulated downward. So deputies start conducting themselves that way. And I've heard stories from the contract cities about the way deputies are now conducting themselves, unprofessionally, because they believe that the quote unquote sheriff has their back. So, we need to start from the very day one, implementing that policy of respect, where we treat everybody, including the board of supervisors, the DA, the Civilian Oversight Commission, the Inspector General, and everybody else with the respect and dignity they deserve. And that from day one will set the tone and the direction our organization is going. Thank you.
Thank you for your response.
Okay, question number 9, sir. Tell us about your biggest failure on the job and what you learned, and what did you learn from that experience? So once again, tell us about your biggest failure on the job and what you did, how you learned from that experience.
Well, I think my biggest failure, I never regretted leaving the sheriff's department early under the corrupt regime of Lee Baca. What the sheriff was trying to do to me and others around me was completely unethical, illegal, and definitely immoral. My biggest regret is not standing up and speaking more loudly about what the sheriff was doing. I knew what he was doing. I went into his office in 2013 in the month of May, and he and I had a knockdown, drag out fight in his office. And I told the sheriff that if he continued doing what he was doing, he would not be in office much longer. When you go in there as a captain and you tell the sheriff of LA County that, you're going to have some problems. And we did. We had a knockdown, drag out fight in his office. And I told him that I didn't think that he and his regime would be around much longer. He was infuriated, screaming at me. And ultimately, I was right. 7 months later, I was gone from the organization. He was gone. But what people don't know about this is when I left the sheriff's department, I was working in San Diego. He sent a chief, Ted Sexton, and a lieutenant and a sergeant, who I know very well, to come to San Diego to ask me to return to the sheriff's department because the LA Metro executives were infuriated by the way he had treated me and wanted me back in the organization in order to negotiate a long-term 10-year contract with Transit Services Bureau, which we ultimately lost. So there's a lot of byproducts to the fact that I just kind of left to go make my own career. So my biggest regret is just not standing up on the hall and announcing it to the whole world that, hey, there's a lot of problems with this sheriff and this undersheriff, and we're going to have issues. I knew it. I just left. So my biggest regret was not leaving. My biggest regret is not being louder about it, because, and I'm not talking about in a whistleblower fashion, because I didn't know about their illegal conduct, but I definitely knew that what they were doing was unethical and immoral and unsustainable. So my biggest regret was just not being louder about it. And then I later found out, in closing, I'll tell you this, I found out that when he was trying to do harm to me was the same week that he had perjured himself to the FBI. So he was under a lot of pressure to try to make it look like he was holding people accountable, when in fact, he couldn't even hold himself accountable.
I appreciate your response. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, and your last question is, how has your life's work prepared you for the position of LA County Sheriff?
Well, you know what? I've had my challenges both personally and professionally. There's nobody else that you can name in the sheriff's department that stood up to Lee Baca at 47 years old, at his own expense, at his family's expense, for the rest of their lives in terms of retirement. Went on the road, traveled to San Diego, either commuted or stayed in San Diego, came back, worked government positions all around LA County, including 6 counties with the MetroLink, managed a $56 million budget with the City of Commerce as a city manager, drove and lived in Ventura County as an assistant chief of police and then interim chief of police. Nobody has had to endure what I've endured and has the experience that I have. And when I spoke up at the POPA and ALADS forum, I started by saying I am the most qualified person on this stage, not in terms of years necessarily, but definitely in terms of government experience and definitely geographical space and education. So I've learned a lot, and I've dealt with stuff in my personal life as well that has been challenging. Fortunately, I have a very healthy, happy, loving family that supports everything that I do. So I think my whole life has been a work in progress. I've probably overachieved in a lot of ways, but I always rise to the occasion. And why do I do that? Because I work hard, I'm dedicated, and I love to surround myself with great people who can make me better. And I govern from a place of love, not a place of retribution, anger, or retaliation. I believe in love, and I believe that together, the more minds on a problem, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your response. And now you have 3 minutes for your closing remarks.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you guys for having me on this forum. The BPOA is somebody that I've worked with and been around a long time. I was great friends with former President Bill Martin. We worked together at 2 different levels in the sheriff's department. I turned to him for help on more than one occasion in my career. I admire the men and women who are a part of your organization. Again, my consultants are all from the African-American community. This afternoon, I'm going to an event, cannabis event, that's being sponsored by my supporters, mostly African-American, George Floyd Foundation members, Ferguson 1000 job members. And I just want to tell you, I appreciate what you do, and I support everything that you do, and I stand by you in solidarity. But I do that with all races, because I really don't see color. When I'm in the organization, I just see tan and green. And I want to say one more thing in closing about the concealed weapons permits. I talked about that and how I believe in that program, and I will continue to issue them. But what I won't do is I will not trade concealed weapons permits for $1,500 donations to my campaign, which is exactly what the sheriff is currently doing with his program. So in closing, thank you guys for your time. This has been a great experience. It's been a lifelong journey and a lifelong work. Great things are happening in my campaign. Retired Commander Bob Lindsay has joined my campaign. It has not been announced, but it will be announced in the coming days. As you know, Bob Lindsay got 20% of the vote. He's pro-law enforcement, pro-law and order, and pro-community. So I look forward to making that announcement, which I think is going to separate me from the challengers. You saw what I did at the forum with POPA, and I'll leave you with this thought. We have a sheriff that went to POPA and interviewed and said, I don't need your I don't need your help. I don't need your endorsement. Join me to take on the Board of Supervisors or sit on the sideline with a bunch of losers. You don't need a sheriff like that. You don't need an arrogant sheriff. You don't need an angry sheriff. You need a loving sheriff. And you'll get that in Matt Rodriguez. And I will stand shoulder to shoulder with you to push your initiatives and help recruit in the African-American community, not only recruit, but also promote. So with that, I thank you. I say enjoy the Super Bowl, be safe, and hopefully our home team can bring it home. I appreciate the time.
Right. Thank you, sir, for your participation. Glad to have you. Again, it's a reminder, your participation in our interview is not an endorsement from the organization. It is an attempt for us to learn about you and for you to speak with us. So thank you for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
Mr. Ingram, thank you. It's great to see you in a position of leadership. It's been a long time. I
Yes, it
wish
has.
you well, and I wish your board well. You guys take care and have a great weekend.
Okay, thank you.
Take care, sir.
You got it. Thank you.